Naomi Osaka just made one of the most dramatic entrances in Australian Open history, and Aryna Sabalenka has some very interesting thoughts about it. The world number one just threw some serious shade while trying to sound supportive, and tennis fans are reading between every single line. This whole situation is way messier than it looks on the surface, and the comparisons are getting brutal. Drop a comment right now and tell me, whose style do you prefer? Naomi Osaka's bold fashion statements or Aryna Sabalenka's classy approach? Alright, so Naomi Osaka walked onto the Australian Open courts looking like she just stepped out of a high-fashion editorial shoot, and the internet absolutely lost its mind. The Japanese star showed up in a seafoam green applique dress layered over pleated white pants, topped off with a winged white hat, a veil, and a parasol. Yeah, you read that right, a parasol, at a tennis tournament. And honestly, it was an iconic collaboration between Osaka, Nike, and London designer Robert Woon. And it wasn't just about looking good. There was actual meaning behind it. The butterflies on her hat and parasol referenced that memorable 2021 Australian Open moment when a butterfly landed on her face during a match. She gently carried it away and then went on to win the whole tournament that year. The jellyfish theme was inspired by a children's book she'd been reading with her daughter Shai. So this wasn't just random fashion for the sake of fashion. This was personal, thoughtful, and creative. Osaka told Vogue that the outfit feels like armor, and at times, fantasy. It reminds me that I'm not just walking out as an athlete, but as a whole person. That's a pretty powerful statement. She's using fashion to express herself, to tell her story, and to show up as more than just someone who hits tennis balls. And you know what? A lot of people loved it. Fellow players praised her. Fans were posting about it all over social media. It made headlines around the world.
On the win, you're someone who's really into fashion, and so with that in mind, I was curious what you thought of Naomi Osaka's outfit last night.
You know, that's really beautiful about fashion, that you can express yourself in any way, and it's pretty free world. There is no judgment. There is just, like one people see fashion in one way, other people see fashion in other way. That's why it's so beautiful that you can feel free and go and show yourself, show your personality. And I think yesterday outfit, it was a perfect fit of her personality, her culture, a lot of things. So that was pretty cool.
But then Aryna Sabalenka decided to weigh in, and this is where things get interesting. During her post-match press conference, Sabalenka was asked about Osaka's entrance outfit, and her response was, well, let's just say it was layered. On the surface, she said all the right things. She talked about how fashion is a beautiful way to express yourself and how there's no judgment. She said Osaka's look was a perfect fit of her personality, her culture, a lot of things. Sounds supportive, right? Except then she was asked if she would ever try something similar, and that's when the shade came out. Sabalenka said she would be more like classy entrance, Maybe, I don't know, maybe long coat or I don't know. More classy. Let that sink in for a second. She essentially just said that Osaka's dramatic, creative, meaningful outfit wasn't classy, and she said it with a straight face while pretending to be complimentary.
Sort of fantasy fashion entrance. Have you thought about what that would look like?
For me, I wish Nike would let me do this kind of stuff, but not for this year. But we are working on it. But I don't know. I think I would be more like classy entrance. Maybe I don't know. Maybe long coat or I don't know, something. I was fantasizing. I was trying to work it out, but not good enough yet, but I'll come up with something cool next year for sure.
Now, Sabalenka tried to walk it back a bit by saying she was fantasizing about different entrance ideas and that nothing is planned for this year. But come on, the damage was already done. She planted the idea that her approach would be more refined, more elegant, more classy, and in doing so, she implied that Osaka's wasn't. That's not support. That's backhanded shade disguised as a compliment. The internet picked up on it immediately. People started comparing Sabalenka's comments to the way other players have responded to bold fashion moments in tennis. And here's where Coco Gauff comes into the conversation. Because Gauff has consistently shown nothing but genuine support for other players' creative choices. When players do something different or take risks with their style, Gauff is right there hyping them up. She doesn't throw subtle jabs. She doesn't qualify her praise with comments about what she would do differently. She just celebrates other women being themselves. That's the difference. Gauff understands that supporting other women doesn't mean you have to do exactly what they're doing. It just means you respect their choices and celebrate their self-expression. Sabalenka's comments, on the other hand, came across as competitive even in an area that has nothing to do with tennis. Like she couldn't just let Osaka have her moment without inserting herself and making it clear that her taste is supposedly superior. And let's be real here. Sabalenka mentioned that she's designed an outfit inspired by Maria Sharapova and Serena Williams for this Australian Open. So she clearly cares about fashion and making statements through her clothing. But the difference is that she's positioning her approach as the right way to do it. Classy, elegant, refined. As opposed to what? Osaka's creative, theatrical, meaningful entrance? That's just unnecessary. The whole thing reeks of insecurity. If Sabalenka was truly confident in her own style choices, she wouldn't need to throw shade at someone else's. She could have just said, "I loved Osaka's look, and I'm excited to show my own style this tournament." Done. Easy. Supportive. But instead, she had to make sure everyone knew that her version would be better, more classy, more appropriate, whatever that means. What makes this even more frustrating is that tennis has a long history of policing women's fashion choices. Serena Williams has dealt with it her entire career. People criticized her catsuits, her tutus, her bold colors. They said she was too much, too attention-seeking, not traditional enough. And now, here we are in 2026, and female players are still getting subtle digs for expressing themselves through fashion, except now it's coming from other players instead of just the media and officials. Osaka's outfit wasn't hurting anyone. It wasn't disrespectful, it wasn't inappropriate, it was creative, personal, and beautiful. The fact that it made people uncomfortable, or that Sabalenka felt the need to distance herself from that approach, says more about them than it does about Osaka. Fashion in sports should be celebrated, not critiqued through the lens of what's classy enough. And let's talk about that word for a second. Classy. It's one of those words that people use when they want to sound sophisticated, but what they really mean is conservative or safe. When someone says they prefer a classier approach, what they're really saying is they don't want to take risks or stand out too much. They want to fit into a specific mold of what's considered acceptable. And that's fine for them, but it's not fair to use that as a measuring stick for everyone else. Osaka has never been about playing it safe. She's taken stands on social justice issues. She's been open about her mental health struggles. She's used her platform to advocate for change. And she's used fashion as another form of self-expression and storytelling. That takes courage. It takes confidence. And it takes a willingness to be vulnerable and authentic, even when people are going to judge you for it. Sabalenka, on the other hand, seems more concerned with maintaining a certain image. And again, that's her choice. But the problem is when she positions that choice as inherently better than what other players are doing. That's where it crosses the line from personal preference into judgment. The comparisons to Coco Gauff are interesting because Gauff represents a different approach to supporting other women in tennis. When Alexandra Ila posted a photo dump after her Australian Open exit, Gauff was right there in the comments showing love. When other players make bold fashion choices or speak out on issues, Gauff is consistently supportive. She understands that there's room for everyone to be themselves without it being a competition. Gauff has her own unique style both on and off the court, but she doesn't feel the need to position it as superior to anyone else's. She's secure enough in herself to celebrate other people's choices without feeling threatened. That's maturity. That's real confidence. And that's what makes her such a respected figure in the sport, despite being so young. Sabalenka is the world #1 right now. She's an incredible tennis player. She's won multiple Grand Slams. She has every reason to be confident. But these comments reveal an insecurity that's honestly surprising. Why does she need to throw shade at Osaka's outfit? Why does she need to make sure everyone knows her approach would be classier? What does she gain from that? The answer is nothing. She gains nothing from it except making herself look petty and insecure. And it's disappointing because tennis needs more women supporting women, not more subtle competition and judgment over things that have nothing to do with the actual sport. Osaka handled the whole situation with grace, by the way. She didn't respond to Sabalenka's comments. She just continued focusing on her tennis and her self-expression. She beat Antonia Ružić in the first round 6-3, 3-6, 6-4, and moved on to the next round. The outfit made headlines, people talked about the meaning behind it, and Osaka accomplished exactly what she set out to do. She made a statement, she told her story, and she did it on her own terms. Meanwhile, Sabalenka is over here trying to position herself as the arbiter of what's appropriate and classy in tennis fashion. And honestly, nobody asked. Players should be able to express themselves however they want, as long as it's not violating tournament rules or dress codes. Osaka's outfit wasn't breaking any rules. It was just different. And different shouldn't automatically be criticized or qualified with comments about how someone else would do it better. This whole situation also highlights a bigger issue in women's sports, where female athletes are constantly being judged on things that have nothing to do with their athletic performance. Men's tennis players can show up in basically the same outfit every tournament and nobody says a word. But women, every outfit is analyzed, critiqued, and compared. Every fashion choice becomes a statement that people feel entitled to have opinions about. Osaka is pushing back against that by using fashion intentionally and meaningfully. She's taking control of the narrative and using her entrance as another form of storytelling and self-expression. That should be celebrated, not subtly criticized by other players who think their approach is somehow more refined. Sabalenka mentioned that she's been working with Nike on potential entrance ideas, but nothing is ready for this year. So basically, she's thinking about doing something similar to what Osaka just did, but she wanted to make sure everyone knew that when she does it, it'll be classier. That's not inspiration, that's competition. And it's unnecessary competition in an area that should be about celebrating individuality and creativity. The tennis world is watching all of this play out, and the reactions have been mixed. Some people agree with Sabalenka that there's a such thing as being too much with fashion in sports. Others think she was out of line for throwing shade at a fellow player who was just expressing herself. And then there are people who think the whole thing is being blown out of proportion, and that Sabalenka didn't mean anything negative by her comments. But here's the thing, words matter, especially when you're the world #1 and people are listening to everything you say. Sabalenka could have easily just said she loved Osaka's outfit and left it at that. She didn't need to add the qualifier about being more classy. She didn't need to distance herself from Osaka's approach. She chose to do that. And that choice reveals something about how she views other players and their decisions. At the end of the day, this whole situation is a reminder that women in sports are still navigating these complicated dynamics of supporting each other while also competing against each other. And sometimes those lines get blurred. But the best players, the Coco Gauffs of the world, understand that you can compete fiercely on the court while still genuinely supporting and celebrating each other off the court. That's the standard. And anything less than that just comes across as petty. So there you have it. Aryna Sabalenka threw some serious shade at Naomi Osaka's Australian Open entrance while trying to sound supportive, and tennis fans are not letting it slide. If you enjoyed this breakdown of the drama, smash that like button and subscribe for more tennis content. Drop a comment and let me know whose side you're on in this fashion debate.